Mauricio Sulaiman kind of threw Bivol under the bus with regards to Bivol being Russian.
And finally, we got it. You know, Bivol didn't want to take the fight, so he vacated that belt, and you know, David was next for it. So, but at the end of the day, you know, we're gonna give you guys a good fight.
There is no way in hell that's a duck. I don't even come close to seeing that as a duck.
The decision of Dmitry Bivol to vacate the WBC belt and pursue a trilogy with Artur Beterbiev while stepping away from a potential fight with David Benavidez has sparked outrage within the boxing industry. Sharing his immediate reaction to this news, renowned boxing journalist Sean Zittel weighed in on the situation. He expressed sadness over Bivol no longer being in line to fight David Benavidez, and went on to voice his frustration, stating that in his view, Bivol has effectively ducked Benavidez. Zittel also emphasized that this move might tarnish Bivol's legacy in the eyes of many fans and pundits.
What's up, everyone? It's your man Sean Zittel, and we just got news that Dmitry Bivol is vacating the WBC Light Heavyweight Championship of the World. They were scheduled for a purse bid for tomorrow, I believe, but Bivol went ahead and chucked the WBC belt out. So here's my reaction to it, man. I think, you know, I'm tempted to say Dmitry Bivol has ducked David Benavidez.
Condemning Bivol's decision to vacate the WBC belt, Sean acknowledged that the trilogy fight with Artur Beterbiev is viewed by many as historic, and he shared that he too recognizes its significance. However, he emphasized that the previous bouts with Beterbiev were heavily marketed with the goal of securing the undisputed title. With Bivol now vacating the WBC belt, he argued that the original purpose of those fights with Beterbiev has been undermined. Sean further highlighted how the WBC title holds immense value for many fighters, suggesting that Bivol should have taken this into greater consideration before making his decision.
But, you know, part of the selling point of those fights was that they were for undisputed. That was the main purpose of Bivol and Beterbiev meeting up together in the first place. And now with Bivol vacating the WBC title, which arguably is still the most prestigious out of the 4 titles, I still got fighters like Brian Norman telling me they want to fight Mario Barrios because they want to win the WBC belt the most. And the WBC's done a lot to, you know, wane and influence, but they still are the WBCs.
In his analysis, Sean not only criticized Dmitry Bivol's decision, but also examined the role played by promoters in the situation. He argued that Turki Al-Sheikh is a key figure behind this move, pointing out that he has been the one pushing for the rematch with Artur Beterbiev. While Sean had previously refrained from criticizing Turki, recognizing his role in Bivol's rise, he now felt compelled to hold him accountable for Bivol's actions. Sean expressed his disappointment in both Bivol for seemingly ducking David Benavidez and in Turki for his involvement. He drew parallels to the failed negotiations between Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, and Sean Porter, arguing that these high-profile fights were delayed due to the unnecessary interference of Al Haymon, and suggested that similar obstacles may be at play here.
Ultimately, Turki Al-Sheikh shot this fight down. And that's part of why I hesitate to say Bivol ducked Benavidez too, because if the man who's lining your pockets, who's given you by far the most money you've probably ever made in your life, is saying, I don't want you to do this, I want you to do this instead, then I have to understand that as another man. But when Al Haymon would advise Errol Spence for several years not to yet face Terence Crawford, fans rightly, you know, criticized that. And even as Errol Spence had fights with Sean Porter in a unification, it was a unification fight, a big fight in its own right, people still saw it as, you're not fighting Sean Porter. You're not fighting Sean Porter because your promoter doesn't want, or you're not fighting Terence Crawford. You're not fighting Terence Crawford because your promoter doesn't want you to fight Terence Crawford, and he's protecting you from Terence Crawford. And then ultimately, July 2023 comes around, and what Crawford wound up doing to Spence helped validate a lot of those narratives that the fans in boxing felt.
Furthermore, Sean noted that the dynamics in the boxing world are constantly evolving, and people often judge situations based on shifts in these dynamics. He pointed out that many may have speculated that David Benavidez, as a fighter under Al Haymon, would eventually settle for the title of undisputed champion, and some may even label him in various ways. However, Sean argued that this perception is misleading. He emphasized that Benavidez's pursuit of the undisputed crown is a result result of his own skill and capabilities, not simply the influence of his promoter. Sean also suggested that Bivol's decision to vacate the WBC belt and avoid a fight with Benavidez has inadvertently opened the door for Benavidez to claim that title, with the WBC effectively stripping Dmitry Bivol of the opportunity.
I feel like dynamics, they definitely change. I don't feel that, I know that. Dynamics change in boxing and in everything in the world. And so a lot of people are still holding on to that dynamic. They think because Benavidez is an Al Heyman fighter that he's a hype job, and people got a lot to say about Benavidez. The weight bully, he's clout chasing and all that, but this is now back-to-back weight classes where David Benavidez was the #1 guy for the champion of the division. And the only difference this time is that the WBC actually stripped Dmitry Bivol, unlike they did Canelo.
Amid the reactions, Benavidez's father, Jose Benavidez Sr., shared his thoughts on the situation. Upon learning that his son had been crowned the undisputed WBC champion, he expressed contentment, acknowledging that while it was his desire to see a fight between Benavidez and Dmitry Bivol, things took a different turn. He voiced appreciation for his son's achievement, but criticized Bivol, asserting that Bivol never truly wanted to face Benavidez, which is why he vacated the WBC belt. Jose also made it clear that the situation is still in their hands, as the trilogy fight between Beterbiev and Bivol is ongoing, and once the dust settles, they are ready to face whoever comes out on top.
Yeah, no, like you said, man, you know, I wish we would have got a exciting fight and try to get those belts, you know, how the people want to see the fights, you know, and get crowned with a big fight. But man, we've been doing this for almost 5 years, you know, trying to get a world title, and finally we got it. You know, Bivol didn't want to take the fight, so he vacated that belt, and you know, David was next for it. So, but at the end of the day, you know, we're gonna give you guys a good fight. We're trying to give you nothing but good fights, exciting fights, and I believe that Bivol wants to fight Benavidez still, you know, make the trilogy. I'm pretty sure that we'll get the winner or the loser of that fight. I don't think there's going to be no loser at that fight. The fights have been the same, kind of very, very close. And whoever, you know, wants to fight David, I think it will be an exciting fight.
Explaining his stance on the situation, Jose Benavidez Sr. expressed full confidence in the outcome. While he acknowledged that the fight with Bivol may not materialize, he made it clear that he didn't feel upset or frustrated by this development. Instead, he affirmed that he had already anticipated this outcome and had no doubt that Bivol would eventually try to avoid a fight with his son, David Benavidez. With pride and determination, Jose highlighted his son's accomplishments, noting that David is now a two-time world champion in 2 different divisions. He emphasized that regardless of the belts, their ultimate goal is to deliver the best fights for the fans. With the WBC title now in their hands, Jose Sr. feels a greater sense of responsibility and is even more focused on giving the fans what they want: exciting, high-quality matchups.
You know, they were fair, and you know, they made it happen. So, but I never had no doubts or got frustrated or felt that it wasn't going to happen. You know, I was very positive, and I was visualizing that it was going to happen, and thank God it did. And we're ready. We're ready. A 2-time world champion in 2 different divisions. And now what we got to do, we got to retain, and we got to give the fans what they want to see. Good fights.
In his effort to acknowledge the WBC's role, Jose Benavidez Sr. made sure not to overlook the hard work and dedication his son David Benavidez has put in. He emphasized that the belt wasn't simply handed to David, it was earned through hard-fought battles and proving himself time and again. Jose Sr. stated that this title should have been awarded to his son much earlier, but now that it has been, he is satisfied with the achievement. He proudly highlighted that David Benavidez has solidified his reputation as the true Mexican monster, a fighter whom many boxers avoid facing. With this new crown, Jose Sr. is confident that his son will continue to prove himself as the best and is ready to face anyone, anytime.
You know, the good thing about it is that David has proven himself, and he should have been a world champion before. So it's not like they're giving us anything for free. You know, he proved himself. Nobody wants to fight him. They'd rather leave the belts than to face him, you know, so that's a big accomplishment. So at the end of the day, you know, we're proud of what we've done and where we're at, and we're willing to still defend that belt with anybody that wants the opportunity.
At the same time, Ade Oladipo expressed his disappointment upon hearing the news. He suggested that a fight between Dmitry Bivol and David Benavidez would have been much more exciting to watch. Oladipo further pointed out that if Benavidez were to step into the picture, it would create complications for both Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, as Benavidez is now the rising star with a lot of momentum. He also conveyed his sadness, acknowledging that a fight he had long hoped for will no longer take place.
I'm slightly upset we're not seeing Bivol Benavidez. I think it's a great fight. I want to see Benavidez kind of chucked into the middle of this, because I think Benavidez could cause both of those guys problems. He's hot right now. So it is disappointing.
Sharing his perspective, Ade Oladipo went on to assert that, in his view, WBC President Mauricio Sulaiman has effectively thrown Dmitry Bivol under the bus due to Bivol being Russian. Oladipo blamed Sulaiman, claiming that he did not want Bivol to fight for the WBC belt simply because of his nationality. He emphasized that as a result of Sulaiman's actions, he no longer deserves any favors or support from Bivol or his team. Oladipo further argued that holding Mauricio Sulaiman accountable is essential, as he stands as a key figure behind much of the drama surrounding this situation.
Mauricio Sulaiman being upset with this kind of throws me a little bit, just because, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Mauricio Sulaiman kind of threw Bivol under the bus with regards to Bivol being Russian. And again, I might have to look at this, and I probably should have looked at this before doing this video, but I'm pretty sure he kind of didn't want Bivol to fight for the WBC belt because he was Russian. Right? Do you guys remember that? So Mauricio Sulaiman shouldn't accept any favors or expect any favors from Dmitry Bivol's team. It ain't going to be forthcoming, because, again, Mauricio Sulaiman was very, very strong, I thought, on that.
Meanwhile, Ade Oladipo, expressing his strong disapproval of the current situation, shared his frustration regarding the WBC's decision to award David Benavidez the championship without him earning it through a fight. He emphasized that the notion of Benavidez being handed the title didn't sit well with him, as he believes that a true champion should have to fight for the belt. He said, "I don't like the idea of Benavidez being upgraded to champion. I hate it. I really do. He should fight for the belt, not just be handed it." On the other hand, Showbiz the Adult voiced his opinion in a completely different direction. While many have viewed Bivol's decision to vacate the WBC belt as ducking Benavidez, Showbiz strongly disagreed, asserting that there's no way this can be considered a duck. He expressed frustration with people for jumping to conclusions and labeling it as ducking, arguing that the actual focus of what constitutes a duck in this scenario is being completely overlooked. Sharing his stance, Showbiz made it clear that he does not in any way see this as a ducking move.
There is no way in hell that's a duck. I don't even come close to seeing that as a duck.
Explaining his stance, Showbiz emphasized that a duck isn't determined by how we personally want to perceive a situation. He asserted that just because things didn't go the way we expected, it doesn't give anyone the right to call them unfair. Showbiz redefined the concept of ducking, highlighting what it truly means to him. He argued that in this case, Dmitry Bivol's decision to vacate the WBC belt does not align with his definition of a duck, making it clear that he believes Bivol is not avoiding anyone. Showbiz stressed that Bivol didn't run from a fight, but instead made a choice to pursue a different opponent based on his own goals and desires.
I wanted Bivol versus David Benavidez, and that was going to purse bid today, and it would have been on purse bid by now. All right? But it didn't happen. I didn't want Bivol versus Benavidez, but that doesn't mean it's a duck, because I wanted this over that. Let's be fair. Let's not be assholes. All right? A duck is when you don't accept a fight and there is no rational reason why. A duck is when you don't accept a fight and then nothing happens. Bivol decides to take on That is clearly not a duck.
Adding further references to his claims, Showbiz argued that Bivol's decision cannot be considered a duck because both Beterbiev and Bivol are fighters of the same caliber. He noted that if the fighters were of different levels, there might be grounds to consider it a duck, but in this case, both are elite champions. Showbiz pointed out that it is Beterbiev who is offering Bivol another opportunity to become undisputed, and if Bivol were to avoid this fight by not accepting, that would certainly be considered ducking. He also emphasized that if the trilogy fight doesn't happen, the world would view it as Bivol avoiding the rematch when the chance was there, which in his eyes would then be a true case of ducking.
They are 1-for-1. Beterbiev beats Bivol, becomes undisputed. He gives Bivol the rematch. He gives Bivol another shot. Then Bivol wins. For Bivol to just run off would be diabolical. I'm going to run off well undisputed. That would be diabolical. I'm talking about from soldier to soldier. That would be diabolical. Number two, God forbid that years down the line, you look back on history and you say Beterbiev and Bivol was 1-for-1 when they fought. Daddy, why wasn't there a third fight? I don't know. History. The next generation will look back and say, why didn't they fight a third time when it was so close? Somebody ducked. That's what they're saying.
In his continued defense of Dmitry Bivol's decision, Showbiz the Adult emphasized that there is no rush for Bivol to fight Beterbiev next. He explained that given the circumstances, it makes more sense for Bivol to face Benavidez first, as Beterbiev is getting older and is further from his prime. Showbiz argued that time is on Bivol's side and he can afford to take the fight with Beterbiev later. He also noted that if Bivol beats Beterbiev, then he could later turn his attention to Benavidez. According to Showbiz, the delay between Bivol and Benavidez might be acceptable, but avoiding Beterbiev at this stage is not a wise move. He stated, if Bivol fights Benavidez instead of Beterbiev next, it would mean another year of Beterbiev getting older and moving further away from his prime. Bivol is still young, and so is Benavidez, while Beterbiev is already in the later stages of his career, so time is on Bivol's side. He can take on Beterbiev later, and if he beats Beterbiev, he could then face Benavidez. The reality is that while you can delay a fight between Benavidez and Bivol, you can't do that with Beterbiev. He's not getting any younger. Contrary to Showbiz's viewpoint, Sean Zettel, who has been vocal about Dmitry Bivol potentially ducking David Benavidez, has offered his own perspective. He claims that Turki Al-Sheikh is the key figure manipulating Bivol's decisions and actions. According to Zettel, this is likely a honeymoon phase for Turki, where whatever he decides gets executed without resistance. Zettel argued that Turki has been persuading and even possibly threatening Bivol to step away from the fight with Benavidez and instead pursue a bout with Beterbiev. In Zettel's view, by following Turki's lead, Bivol's actions have clearly resulted in ducking Benavidez, undermining the potential showdown between the two.
Honeymoon phase with Turki Al-Sheikh, and fans respect Bivol, and Bivol's not the type you'd feel like to politic and duck. That they're not quick to say that about what's going on with Turki Al-Sheikh. Turki Al-Sheikh shot this fight down. That's a fact. He basically threatened Bivol. He said, you know, Bivol knows what's good for him, then he'll stay where the grass is greener, so to, you know, basically.
Further intensifying his argument, Sean Zettel pointed out that while the world wants to see a fight between Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, he remains steadfast in dismissing the idea. He highlighted that despite Bivol and Beterbiev engaging in extended face-offs and dramatic buildups, it hasn't generated the kind of excitement or drama that some expect. Given that, Zettel suggested that a fight with David Benavidez, who at just 28 years old brings a unique style to the ring, would be something fresh and intriguing. He acknowledged that many fans believe Bivol would beat Benavidez, and some even argue that Canelo would land enough body shots to wear Benavidez down, but Zettel questioned why these fights haven't been made yet. He also claimed that not only Bivol, but Canelo has also avoided fighting Benavidez. The key difference in Bivol's case, according to Zettel, is that Bivol has been stripped of the WBC belt as his 3% sanctioning fee isn't as lucrative as Canelo's, which may have played a role in the situation.
Beterbiev and Bivol, as good as those 24 rounds are, They haven't produced that kind of drama in action, so why not see something new against an exciting, youthful 28-year-old style of David Benavidez? So I get it if you think Bivol beats him. I get it if you think Canelo would have folded David Benavidez up with a body shot inside of 6 to 8 rounds. But they didn't want to fight him. If they're your favorite fighters, then why didn't they want to fight him? They both, it's fair to say, that I'm not saying you have to agree, but it's fair to say they both ducked David Benavidez. The only difference is Bivol actually got stripped today because his 3% of a sanctioning fee isn't worth as much.
Amid the ongoing discussion surrounding the situation, Ariel Helwani also shared his perspective. He firmly asserted that anyone who believes Dmitry Bivol has ducked David Benavidez is mistaken. Helwani clarified that his stance on this matter is clear. Bivol's decision is purely a matter of loyalty to his promoter, Turki Al-Sheikh, who has supported him on multiple occasions. Helwani emphasized that Bivol's choice to fight Artur Beterbiev in a trilogy is nothing more than a reflection of this loyalty, and it should not be viewed as an attempt to avoid Benavidez.
I see some people, even in the chat right now, we're live on the DAZN Boxing YouTube channel, on the app as well, saying that Bivol ducked Benavidez. And look, on paper, you look at it, like on its surface, okay, he didn't take the fight. Come on. Dmitry Bivol ain't ducking anyone. I mean, he just fought this monster twice, pardon the pun. Like, come on, he's not ducking anyone. I think it is actually what you said. I think he has some sort of loyalty and kinship towards Turki, who made these fights, who got him big paydays, who made the rematch after he was maybe screwed in the first fight, and so he's going that direction, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Elaborating on his stance, Ariel Helwani emphasized that as a fan, he had longed to see a fight between David Benavidez and Dmitry Bivol, noting how financially significant this matchup would be for the sport. While he expressed his desire to witness the bout, he firmly reiterated that he would never agree with the notion that Bivol is ducking Benavidez. He said, "As a fan, I'm way more interested in seeing Bivol versus Benavidez. It's a fresh matchup, and I'd rather see that fight. We just saw Beterbiev and Bivol go at it for 24 straight rounds over the course of 4 months. Not like we had to wait forever for a rematch. So as a fan, I'm a bit disappointed, but I'm not gonna listen to any of this nonsense about Bivol ducking Benavidez." And there you have it, folks. An intense debate that's shaking up the boxing world. From the potential Bivol versus Benavidez clash to the role of promoters and the WBC, opinions are running high, and the stakes couldn't be greater. Whether you agree with Bivol's decisions or not, one thing's for sure, this drama is far from over. What do you think? Did Bivol duck Benavidez, or is there more to this story than meets the eye? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on all the latest boxing updates. Until next time, stay tuned.